All right, today we're diving into a wild story. We're talking secrets, smugglers, and machines. Stuff that literally redrew the map of the world. It all started in one country, but man, the ideas behind it, they were just way too powerful to keep under lock and key.
So, how did one nation's big secret completely change everything? I mean, it's a massive question, isn't it? For a while there, Great Britain basically held the keys to the future. They had the Industrial Revolution all to themselves, and they were not about to share. But, as we're about to find out, you just can't keep a revolution this big on a leash. Yeah, for decades, Britain was completely on its own. Just think about it. While pretty much the rest of the world was still running on good old-fashioned muscle power, hands, horses, water wheels, Britain was already blasting into the future, powered by steam and steel. They had a total monopoly on the modern world, and you better believe they knew it. So the big question is, how did they protect this unbelievable advantage? Well, their plan was actually pretty simple and incredibly strict. You heard me. The British government literally made it illegal for the people who knew the secrets, the engineers, the mechanics, the toolmakers, to leave the country. They were basically building a technological fortress around their island. The knowledge itself, that was a state secret, plain and simple. But you know how it goes. Secrets have a funny way of not staying secret for long. And the very first place that spark jumped, all the way across the Atlantic, to the brand new United States. And let me tell you, the country was primed and ready. It was almost like it was just waiting for this exact moment. And what's so cool is that all the pieces of the puzzle were already there. America had the natural resources, right? You've got these fast-flowing rivers just perfect for power. You've got tons of coal and iron ore. And you've got a growing supply of labor from farms and immigrants. Plus, and this is key, they had the motivation. During the War of 1812, a British blockade basically forced the U.S. to get its act together and start making its own stuff. The only thing they were missing was that British secret sauce, that know-how. So how in the world did they get it? It wasn't some classic spy movie scene, with people stealing blueprints in the dead of night. Nope. It was something way more gutsy and, frankly, way more brilliant.
It was smuggled out in someone's mind.
And this is the guy right here, Samuel Slater. He was a young British mill worker who saw a massive opportunity over in America. So what did he do? He memorized the entire incredibly complex design of a textile machine, broke British law, and hopped on a boat to the US. I mean, can you imagine? This was an insane act of industrial espionage, and he pulled it off with nothing but his memory. And look how fast things took off once he got there. It shows just how quickly one person's secret could totally ignite an industry. Less than a year after Slater showed up, the very first factory was already up and running. Fast forward a couple of decades, and you've got whole towns like Lowell, Massachusetts, just booming, all built around this new factory model. The secret was officially out, and boy, was it spreading like wildfire. Of course, this created a whole new kind of workforce. We're talking about thousands of young women, they were called the mill girls, who left their family farms for these brand new factory towns. And why not? They were promised independence, a decent salary, a whole new life. For a lot of them, this must have seemed like an unbelievably exciting ticket to freedom. But the reality, it was often pretty grim. That freedom they were hoping for definitely came at a price. We're talking brutal hours, more than 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, all under the watchful eye of the bosses. This was the dark underbelly of that shiny new industrial boom.
Okay, so the spark had already lit a fire in America. Now it was about to jump the English Channel and set Europe ablaze. Once the cat was out of the bag, it was really only a matter of time before the rest of the continent wanted in on this British miracle and started adapting it for themselves.
And you know what's interesting? Different countries went about it in different ways. Belgium, for example, had a lot of resources and got a little help from British workers who were finally allowed to leave. So they became an early leader. Germany, they took a more direct approach. Around 1835, they pretty much just copied the British model, imported the equipment, hired the engineers, and got their own industrial zones, like the Ruhr Valley, up and running. So it wasn't like one giant tidal wave sweeping across Europe. It was more like a series of hotspots just lighting up all over the place. You see these pockets of industry popping up, spinning in Bohemia, textiles in northern Italy, cotton processing down in Spain. And every region did it a little differently. Take France. They had a really strong agricultural economy, so they took a much slower, more careful approach. And that actually helped them sidestep some of the really nasty social problems that Britain and the US ran into at the beginning. Okay, so the revolution has spread. It's gone from Britain to America, and now it's all over Europe. But the real shockwave here wasn't just about new factories and bigger cities. No, this was about to completely and fundamentally change the entire global balance of power. And this is the thing you really gotta get. Before this, what made a country powerful? It was about land, armies, farming. But overnight, the rules of the game changed. Suddenly, power was all about industrial capacity. The nations that could build and produce on a massive scale, they became the new top dogs on the world stage.
And this kicked off a new and honestly pretty predatory cycle. Think about it. All these new factories were hungry. They needed a constant supply of raw materials, cotton, rubber, you name it. So these powerful industrialized nations went out and seized colonies to get those resources. And then, the final step, they turned around and sold their manufactured goods right back to the people in those colonies. This whole system created a ton of the global inequality we're still dealing with today.
The end result was pretty stark, a huge and growing gap between the industrialized haves and the non-industrialized have-nots. It basically created a two-tiered world economy. And that divide, it's still shaping pretty much everything, from international politics to the global economy, even today. But it's not all doom and gloom. Inside the industrialized nations themselves, the long-term changes were absolutely profound. Yeah, the early days were tough, but eventually things started to get better. Population, health, wealth, they all started to climb. And this created a brand new, powerful middle class. And what do they want? They want education, a say in their government, social reforms, basically the foundations of the modern societies many of us live in today.
So when you step back and look at the whole thing, what started as one man's secret smuggled out in his head became a force of nature that reshaped every single continent. It connected the world in ways no one could have imagined, but it also carved deep divides with wealth and power. Which leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? Are we still living in the world that this one revolution built?